Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gil Bash, Chair, Global Health and Purpose at Finn Partners. It's a pleasure to welcome you to our closing session at this very special gathering, the pre-conference to the HIT Lab, New York City Health and Innovation Week. Our summit is titled appropriately, People and Planet United, Global Health and Purpose. And it's a special privilege and honor to welcome our closing session speaker, Amy Terpeluk, Managing Partner, Global Purpose and Social Impact Lead at Finn. Amy exemplifies the best of our profession, not only with her wisdom and knowledge, but her courage. She comes to communications from an unusual route, actually in the global entertainment industry, where she was one of the leads of communications for New Line Cinema, known for their exceptional Oscar-winning work with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Amy traveled around the world and really was at the core of elevating the voice of these great entertainment legacy pieces. But there was another side to Amy based on her history, her father being a career Army officer, a general, and in her free time, what little she had, she dedicated actually to making a difference in the world, where she worked with the families of veterans and deployed soldiers and helping them with their social needs. And from that, she realized that she could deploy her great talent to help people around the globe. And she's been doing that quite successfully. A few years ago, when the aspect of doing good to do well came under the spotlight, and there were some, shall I say, stumbles in industry, media turned to many public relations firms for comment. Almost all, if not all, declined. When they turned to Amy, she courageously stepped forward and went on national television to talk about the important continuation of social impact efforts. And she said three things that I continue to remember, that I hope she'll expound upon during her presentation now. She said, one, purpose is a responsibility of business, but business has a responsibility to consider its objectives, its strategy, and its paramount commitment to its stakeholders. That was an impressive explanation of the fact that purpose is not a trendy idea. It is not a one-off. It is connected to an enterprise's strategy. Amy has brought that counsel to major companies around the world and to non-governmental organizations. She's in the forefront of counsel and the forefront of creativity that makes a difference, but also makes business sense. Amy, thank you so much for leading us in this closing session of the summit.
Thank you for your introduction, Gil. I am honored to be your colleague and honored to be here today talking about the long game of purpose. Thank you. In 2007, David Finn wrote in Move magazine that businesses should do good because it's good to do, referring to this as the new social consciousness of business. That was 18 years ago. The language was different, but the spirit was the same. Purpose is not a trend, it's a long game. Today, as terms like DEI, ESG, and even climate become increasingly politicized, and these efforts are impacted by policy changes, we're at a new inflection point. CEOs and CCOs are grappling with questions like, how do we navigate this moment? What do our stakeholders expect? What's beneficial for business and our shareholders? And what's good for society? In a marketplace where artificial intelligence rewrites the rules and amplifies them through algorithms, silence is no longer neutral. It's a statement, and often a risky one. As leaders, we are seeing a collision between policy promises and real-world progress in environmental, climate, and social commitments. Nomenclature, terms like ESG, DEI, and net zero, becomes the proxy for action. And yet, stakeholders are savvier than ever. They seek authenticity, not acronyms. In this increasingly transparent and digitally driven world, companies must choose not just whether to speak, but how and when. There's a precarious line between thoughtful engagement and shouting into the void, but there's also a danger in doing nothing. In an AI-curated reality, even corporate silence is content. It's data, it gets scored. The concept of corporate social responsibility has evolved over decades. In the 1950s, economist Howard R. Bowen introduced the idea in his book, Social Responsibilities of the Businessman, urging businesses to consider their impact in society. CSR gained prominence in the 1960s and 70s amid civil rights movements and environmental concerns. In the 1990s, CSR became more structured, with companies adopting the triple bottom line approach: people, planet, and profit. This period also saw increased media coverage of CSR activities, highlighting both successes and shortcomings. The widespread reports of Nike's supply chain, specifically the reports of child labor and poor working conditions in factories, heightened the public's focus on human rights in the aftermath of this reporting. A New York Times story, Minding More Than the Bottom Line, Two Different Views of Corporate Responsibility, from May 9th, 1996, leads with, and I quote, "When President Clinton convenes a White House conference planned for next week on the nebulous but politically charged issue of corporate responsibility, Sidney Harmon, the chief executive of Harmon International Industries, will be one of the corporate managers Mr. Clinton holds up as a model of how treating workers well is not only the right thing to do, but good for business too." The story delves into the debate over corporate responsibility, the concept that managers must have a commitment to the welfare of their employees and communities, the company's other stakeholders apart from investors, as well as their bottom lines. The story further quotes Mr. Harmon. "What I absolutely believe is honoring the people who do the work can produce stunning results for the company," he said. "If the people in the factory believe there's a real effort to help improve their skills, provide opportunities for advancement and job security, they can do things that will blow your mind." This was 30 years ago. Employee engagement at its finest. In the early 2000s, companies like Starbucks and Patagonia led the way in integrating social and environmental concerns into their business models. Efforts tended to lean towards environmental responsibility and sustainable practices at this time. Following the 2008 economic collapse, trust in institutions bottomed out, but companies that led with purpose, like Patagonia and Unilever, started building reputational capital. As The Economist story from that year states, corporate social responsibility, once a do-gooding sideshow, is now seen as mainstream. But as yet, too few companies are doing it well, and goes on to debate the price of virtue, with the simple solution that businesses should concentrate on the sweet spot where initiatives are good for both profits and social welfare. This is the sort of win-win situation that executives love to talk about, the smart thing to do as well as the right thing to do. An interesting side note, the article also says that CSR wasn't a well-liked term, and one company called their CSR committee the How We Do Business Committee. Fast forward to 2020. The tragic murder of George Floyd and the COVID-19 pandemic catalyzed a surge in corporate commitments to social justice and public health. The subsequent years have seen a backlash, with some companies scaling back DEI initiatives and ESG commitments amid political and economic pressures. Today, certain purpose-driven initiatives face scrutiny. No surprise to anyone listening. The language surrounding DEI and ESG has become contentious, but the underlying goals remain critical. Diversity efforts are not just social imperatives. They are business strategies essential for accessing diverse markets and talent pools. Climate strategies are not just about environmental stewardship. They are about risk management and long-term sustainability. But the link between corporate purpose and performance isn't theoretical, it's empirical. Consider Patagonia, whose consistent commitment to environmental stewardship isn't just moral, it's magnetic. The brand's transparency and bold communication strategy have drawn loyalty and talent. They didn't wait for a trend report to tell them that purpose sells. They lived it and they talked about it. Finn partnered with the Harris Poll to develop a metric years ago we called societal ROI. What did we find? While companies were investing in climate and equity, many Americans didn't feel the impact. That gap between investment and perceived value is where trust erodes. Recent Fin research shows that social impact is more important than product features when customers are making final buying decisions. Consumers consider both what they buy and whom they are buying it from, weighing the company's reputation as an employer and transparency of business practices. Back to that story in 1996. Among product and purpose ranking factors, keeping customer data private and secure and operating in a trustworthy way ranks higher than new features and product innovation. In a polarized environment, businesses are now navigating political headwinds, economic anxiety, regulatory uncertainty, and cultural division. So what do we do with all of this? How do we reconcile a business's obligations to its shareholders with society's expectations? Here's what I believe. We separate language from action. If ESG is triggering, call it something else, but don't abandon the work. Operational mobility cannot be stalled by terminology. Purpose done right isn't performative, it's strategic. It drives talent acquisition and retention, customer loyalty, risk mitigation, innovation, and brand differentiation. Being loud isn't the same as being heard. Every thoughtful communicator knows that. Companies don't need to flood the digital space with slogans. They need to curate credibility, sharing proof points, voices from within, and stories that show the how behind the headlines. Strategic communication today requires a rhythm, knowing when to speak boldly and when to listen closely. We're entering a new era where AI is the first read of your reputation. If your company isn't contributing to the digital canon, then someone or something else will. We must ask, are we authoring our corporate story, or are we becoming artifacts in someone else's script? Look at BlackRock. As the world's largest asset management company, it's always going to be about risk-benefit. And while they may have changed their language and terminology, their core concept of purpose and social impact remains intact through efforts such as the BlackRock Foundation. The nomenclature is the risk, not the work itself. Look at companies investing in education, community health, workforce development. These aren't headline issues, but they're high impact. Walmart's education work, Google's workforce readiness programs, Merck's healthcare approach. These are long bets with high societal ROI. This isn't about riding out the storm. It's about rerouting in the why. Why did we start this work in the first place? Go back to the beginning, 1950s, Howard Bowman. Because businesses shape the world we live in. Consistency isn't just about frequency, it's about character. Companies must commit to objective-driven, stakeholder-centered, and values-led communication that reflects who they are and who they think the public wants them to be. Silence, especially in times of societal or environmental challenge, can signal indifference. If purpose isn't dead, what is? Maybe it's our tolerance for performative impact. What's fading is the illusion that purpose can be delegated into a single department or captured in a one-time pledge. True accountability is cross-functional, and in this new era, authenticity is both expected and demanded. In a world curated by AI, where search engines double as storytellers, companies must rethink the silence as a strategy. The old adage, if you have nothing to say nothing at all, does not apply when silence speaks volumes. Today, reputation isn't just earned, it's engineered. The silver lining to this chaotic period and trajectory of purpose is that now people won't believe what you say, they'll watch what you do. This is not the time for CEOs and CCOs to simply talk about their programming. This is the time to emphasize effort, activity, and outcomes, even if you de-emphasize the language. This moment will evolve, as it always has, and companies that lead with humility, clarity, and commitment will shape not just the market, but the mindset of the future. Thank you all for attending this summit today. On behalf of Fin Partners, our partners, One Business World, HitLab, and the Galleon Foundation, we thank you for attending again at the beginning of New York City Health Innovation Week. And I thank you to all the speakers and guests who are exemplifying purpose at its best. We look forward to seeing you all at the reception this evening. Thank you for your time.